Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first day of Boston Cannabis Week. Thank you for joining us tonight in this very special panel that we have put together to talk about sports and cannabis. Our topic tonight is the consuming athlete, and we need to start off by saying thank you so much to the Hubcraft for helping us put this together, and thank you so much to Kara Crab Burnham, our Director of Education, and Elevate Northeast for helping us put together our entire educational series for the week. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Dave Briggs, who will be moderating the panel, and we'll introduce everybody. Hope everybody enjoys the broadcast. Take it away, Dave.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Kara. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us. Be sure to hit us with those questions. We love to talk with you all and make this a conversation with you, not just with this panel. But it is an awesome panel on sports and cannabis, the consuming athlete. What a great group we have here tonight. I will be your moderator, Dave Briggs. I'm a former national news and sportscaster, Fox, CNN, NBC Sports, Turner Sports, you name it. I now host a cannabis conversation show on Pro Cannabis Media. We intend to destigmatize conversations around cannabis, a lot like this panel here. In fact, Gary Payton was one of our guests on that program, as was Paul Pierce, and he should be coming up in just a bit. So here is our panel, the Hall of Famer, the Glove, 9-time All-Star Gary Payton. Riley Cody spent his entire career with the NHL's Philadelphia Flyers. He was an enforcer, could end your night with one nasty punch. Ethan Zohn, a former pro soccer player himself and winner of Survivor Africa. That was season 3. He's a motivational speaker. And MJ is with us as well. MJ was a D1 volleyball star, not just the CEO of MJ Hybrid Solutions. So it's great to have everyone here. We're going to allow everyone a couple of minutes to kind of introduce themselves, tell their cannabis story, what got you here to this moment, and then we'll open it up for a full-on discussion. So we'll start with the Glove. Again, the only point guard to ever win Defensive Player of the Year. He's been in the Hall of Fame since 2013, 2-time gold medalist and an NBA champion, the Sonics all-time leader in points, assists, and steals. But you know his strain. It has been crushing it out west for years. It's now coming to Massachusetts. That's the good news. Thanks to the Hubcraft, you can try the Glove. So, Gary, tell us a little bit about your strain and your cannabis story. What got you to look at it differently?
Well, Dave, let me tell you how I really got into cannabis. My mother was diagnosed with cancer about a year ago, and my mother was dying. And she wasn't my mom, who I grew up, knowing, always there talking to me and doing things. And I started looking into something that can, really, really relax her and get her back to herself at the days or her last days of coming up, of living. And I wanted her to get into that. And I started doing a lot of research. And when I was doing a lot of research, I wanted her to be comfortable in it, and then I wanted to get her off a lot of the medication that was going into her body, that was affecting things that might have been helping one thing, but it was killing another thing in her body. And I wasn't appreciating that. So I wish that I could have got it a little earlier and got it to her, but my mom was already at a stage where she wasn't going to be able to recover from it and pass away. But I got into it and I gave her some, and for the last days of her life, she was hurt, being hurt. She was smiling, laughing at me, not thinking about the pain, just trying to be herself, and that's what I liked about it. And when I seen that, I was just, man, can we get this to somebody else before they get to a point where they're dying? Can we help somebody? Can we weed them off of medication that'll affect something else in their body and help them with natural stuff? And that was my whole purpose of getting into this, because I want to help other people. I went through the situation of losing my mom and didn't get it to her in enough time. Yeah. And then Cookies came to calling. And Berner, who was a guy out here in San Francisco, is from San Francisco, and everybody out here in Oakland, thinks I'm an icon or a legend, whatever they want to put it, however they want to put it. So I just took it, and they honored me with a strand. I didn't think the strand was going to be as big as it is now, and I'm just going out. I'm about to start another company called GP, General Principle, which is nothing but healthy cannabis. That's it. I'm going to healthy drink. You know how these rappers be having this lean drink that gets them so high that their hearts start to explode and they're dying. We want to have healthy stuff before that they can drink the same thing, get that same kind of buzz and high, and don't have to worry about them having a heart attack or anything. Even with the vape pens, we're trying to get clear where you don't have all the tobacco and all of the stuff going into your lungs.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get into healthy stuff, and that's what it is. My company, Payton's Place, is doing all of these things, and I'm getting with Cookies, and we're trying to collaborate. And when Hubcraft came to board, and I can get out there to the East Coast and get to Massachusetts and all that, and there, I want this to be a worldwide thing so that we can help people all the way in the world. Because you guys know, cannabis is starting to be big. It's starting to be illegal. It's starting to be legal in a lot of states. A lot of people are doing it. And we just got to make it healthy and make it safe for a lot of people. And that's all I'm trying to do.
People in Boston will soon be able to try the truth and the glove strain thanks to the Hubcraft. So we can't wait for that. That'll definitely be worth a road trip up there back to my town of Boston. Riley Cody played his entire career with the Philadelphia Flyers. And Riley, correct me if I'm wrong, you smoked during that NHL career. Why so?
Yeah, I mean, I had a relationship with cannabis since I was 16 years old. I'm originally from Canada, and there's a big, cannabis culture in Canada. I didn't really know any differently growing up. It was just around, and it resonated with me early. And I really couldn't put a finger on exactly what it was doing because it was almost too early. I was too young to really understand what real anxiety was, or even depression or whatnot. But yeah, I got introduced to it at a young age, and I moved away from home when I was 16, played in the Western Hockey League in Saskatchewan for 4 years. And I used cannabis throughout my whole junior hockey career. I don't think I really understood how therapeutic cannabis was until I turned 20 and turned pro. I was playing like the minor league hockey leagues, fighting all these mutants. But that was really kind of when I started to understand cannabis as a therapeutic agent. I still really didn't understand cannabis as a medicine. There was no manual at that time, and no one was really banging the drum at that time. But it resonated with me. It's helped me sleep. I started fighting for a living, so I took on the role of the enforcer when I turned pro, and I was fighting 30, 35 times a year, a season. So then I started to understand what real anxiety was. There's some performance anxiety, but then there was this element of like, holy shit, I'm fighting tomorrow, and I might fight 3 times tomorrow. Who knows, So I started to identify with how cannabis was calming my nervous system and helping me sleep. Right? I mean, I think everyone knows that cannabis helps you sleep, but you can really kind of identify what it's really doing in those moments. So cannabis landed up being a tool throughout all my, the Central Hockey League, East Coast Hockey League, American Hockey League, and eventually found my way to the Flyers, doing the same old, nitty-gritty job of bare knuckle brawling. And I started to kind of really make sense of like, this has been a pain management tool for me this whole time, and I didn't really totally identify with it. I was still drinking a lot and partying a lot, so there was a lot of crossover when you talk about, say, recreational use of drugs. But 28 years old, 2010, was that I got a crossroads in my personal life. I had another year on my contract. The way things were going, where it wasn't great, but I, been punched in the face several thousand times. My body wasn't feeling great. Kind of seen the writing on the wall. The enforcer role was dissipating in the NHL. So I had to make a decision of like what I was going to, land up doing to, keep, banging out 1-year contracts and, fighting for my life every day, and or move on in my life and kind of find myself and heal. So end of that season, I had 2 surgeries, one on my nose, and this doesn't look like it's fixed, and one on my finger. They readjusted this, and I told myself I would just use cannabis for these 2 surgeries to prove to myself I could use just cannabis. I didn't have to touch any of these other pharmaceutical drugs because there was a time there before I had retired, leading up to this point, where I was struggling with some substance abuse. It was alcohol and, the pharmaceutical drugs that you get on the plane, on the bus and stuff like that, the opioids, the sleeping pills, the whole bit. So I want to prove to myself that I could do that. And in that moment, I knew that, there was a better way of living. And I was kind of like, told myself this was like the start of, the new Riley. And it's interesting when you put the energy out into the universe, almost like asking for an answer, asking for guidance, how things happen. It wasn't 2 weeks after that season, I got a phone call from our general manager, Paul Holmgren at the time. And he says, listen, there's a job opening with the Flyers minor league team. I know where you're kind of at mentally and, spiritually after talking to you at the year-end meetings. Would you want to turn your last year of your contract into a coaching deal? And then move on and, kind of get on that side of things. And I knew in the moment, like, that was the decision. I played hockey my whole life, but I knew that I needed to embark on this quest of healing. And, having that really understood cannabis in that moment as a real healing agent. Recently, right after that, read a book called Hemp for Health, started to understand these other minor cannabinoids and the industrial applications of the whole cannabis plant. And for me, it was just like, I'm not getting into coaching as like a long-term career choice. It's more of an opportunity to find some, some breathing room, some peace, heal, and still stay in the game. So that was it. Ever since then, 2010, I've been speaking publicly about cannabis and how it not only helped with pain management, inflammation, but the brain. I mean, I started really mindful using cannabinoids to really deal with some substance abuse and some, TBI issues that I was dealing with. I've been punched in the face so many times. So this whole other world of cannabis, as a neuroprotectant, creating neurogenesis. So kind of just went on the circuit and started banging the drum, speaking around cannabis, and ran into other athletes, had similar stories around how cannabis saved their life or how cannabis helped them get through a tough part of their life. And much like, Gary's story with his mom, like I kept hearing story after story of how this saved someone's life and how this, improves someone's quality of life. And, the sports world is just a microcosm of the macro. And we just got to use our platforms to spread the good word and help try to change the community. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
And you founded Athletes for Care, which is a great group. We'll circle back to that. Dozens of high-profile former athletes are with that organization, educating people across the country. Speaking of interesting cannabis stories, Paul Pierce, the truth, is now with us. Paul, what's up, man?
What's up?
The
How doing?
10-time NBA All-Star, 16th all-time in scoring, one of the greats in Celtics history, 34 hangs in the rafters. He's an NBA Finals MVP and Finals champ. Good to see you, Paul. What's happening? Where are you?
Well, Dave, let me interrupt. You forgot he just made the Hall of Fame just a couple of days ago.
Right.
I was there representing him. You know what I'm saying? So you got to put him at the HOF, or you got to put an HOF on him.
2 Hall of Famers on this panel. Paul just inducted a couple of weeks ago in a killer, I think it was almost a maroon suit. I'm not sure if that was the exact color, but it was an outstanding speech he gave there up on the Hall of Fame speech. Congratulations to you, my friend. Congrats on the honor. And tell us all about, what that meant to you, but also your cannabis story. You've told me before you were stabbed back in September of 2000, and that kind of changed your relationship forever with cannabis.
Oh yeah. Also, I appreciate all the great comments, Hall of Fame, and like you said, man. Yeah, it really got me through a lot of tough times. It was during a period where I was going through a lot of anxiety and depression and things of that nature. And as athletes these days, a lot of times we talk to our trainers and doctors and what I found out, and I didn't find this out until later in my career, that some of the agendas some of these doctors and trainers have with the medicine and the stuff that we take that we get addicted to and prescriptions that we get, that's a side hustle in itself. And I didn't learn that until later in my career. And I've never been one to do the pain pills and the Celebrex and the things they gave us when we played, Gary. that was tough on me. And I found myself being addicted to like sleep aids, that weren't really official sleep aids. Like I told people, I was addicted to NyQuil at times because a lot of times I couldn't sleep. And we'll have games where the game ends at whatever, 11 o'clock. You're on the plane at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then you fly into the next city. It throws off your sleep. And so I found myself taking NyQuil a lot of times just so I can get a full night's rest and be ready for the next night to play. And, as time went on, I was just like, you know what? We was getting tested for marijuana. And it was just like, man, this NyQuil thing didn't help me. I was groggy in the morning. I didn't have good days. I found myself even being more depressed. And I just was like, man, I'm just going to, if I failed the NBA drug test, then so be it. Well, and I never really did, but I used it from time to time. But I was careful. I didn't abuse it.
And now you have a cultivation business in California and the Truth strain coming to Massachusetts. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we'll be launching this, I believe, December now, and we're going to be doing different products such as topicals, such as edibles of that nature. And so we're going to do a whole line of products starting in December. Our flower will be introduced sometime in January. And so I just want to be able to give people a product that they can trust, that's reliable, and it comes from somebody who really understands what the people really need. And so it's something that's trustworthy. A lot of these brands that I'm seeing here now in the city of Boston, I'm unsure about it, but people know me. People know where I come from. People know when I speak, it's the truth. So, we're going to put this on the shelves and make sure that the people have something that they can rely on.
I'm going to let the enforcer decide who has a better nickname. So who is it, the glove or the truth, Riley?
Wow, man, that's tough. You can't throw me on the spot there, man.
Hey, listen, it's hard to get a
nickname
in the league, though. If you got a nickname, not a lot of nicknames in the
right,
league.
Yeah.
So if you got one, that's
nicknames.
But I will tell you, my favorite nickname, it's like nobody ever said, it's got to be Magic. Magic got the best nickname.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's tough to beat that.
It's tough to beat Magic.
That. All right, let's get in MJ Stapley, who's the CEO of MJ Hybrid Solutions and Pro9 Wellness. She's also a former D1 athlete, a volleyball star at college. MJ, good to see you, my friend. Where are you? And tell us your cannabis story.
So I'm currently in Phoenix, Arizona. Hi, everybody. So my cannabis story started out kind of similar to what actually Paul was saying. I was very much addicted to sleeping pills, but not necessarily prescription pills, but Tylenol PM and NyQuil. And it all started back to when I was playing volleyball in college because I had a lot of injuries and a lot of anxiety. And so I was taking sleeping pills, getting them. My first prescription, I think, was Ambien, which I hated, luckily. But I was introduced several years later to CBD oil, and that actually helped get me off sleeping pills. And so when that happened, I got really intrigued, really into the industry, and jumped in with a company that was just starting, helped grow their sales. I went and helped another company grow their sales. My background's heavily in corporate sales. And then from there is when I saw the huge need for employee training. And so I started MJ Hybrid Solutions to primarily work with retailers, dispensaries on training the new cannabis consumer. So it's a mix of sales, compliance, as well as education. But then again, my passion always is in cannabis and sports as well. So I did recently start and launch Pro9 Wellness, which is a line of CBD topical and transdermal products that to help, and then also education aspect of it to help bring awareness to not only the pain and recovery, but the mental part of it that Riley was speaking to. So I've been in the industry 7 years. I help consult and do a lot with the training and education aspect of it. And that's my goal, is to help bridge the gap and bring awareness and quality products.
And Ethan Zohn, I know you're doing some of that as well. And your story, he is the winner, for those of you that don't remember, of season 3 of Survivor Africa, is a motivational speaker. He's a former professional soccer player as well. But you, Ethan, stayed away from cannabis for, well, at least for most of your adult life, came to it later in the process. Number one, why did you stay away from it? Was it the stigma? And 2, talk about the circumstances, devastating as they were, that brought you to it and changed your perspective.
Sure. I first need to make note that there are 3 Hall of Famers here tonight because I was inducted into 2012 Survivor Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow.
So you know, I'm
Okay.
sure it's plastered all over the media. So just
Did you get a ring or a gold jacket, or what do you get
I got
for that?
nothing. That's all that I got.
There's street
I got
cred.
a nickname, and my nickname is the Jewish guy that won Survivor. So that's kind of how it works. The enforcer and the glove and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah, former pro player. Never touched the stuff just because I was afraid of like the stigma associated with it. And I thought to be healthy, I needed to stay off it and stay away from it. And after my playing career was over, I went on Survivor and did pretty well on the show. But life took a little turn for me. And in 2009, I was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer called CD20 positive Hodgkin's lymphoma. Trust me, I'd never heard of it either. And so it was at that point where I introduced kind of cannabis into my life. I was taking way too many synthetics, just like everyone here, to get to bed at night, like Percocet for pain, Ativan for anxiety, Ambien for sleep. And then I'd have to rip Adderall in the morning just to get up to go to the hospital to get chemotherapy. And this is 2009. It wasn't really available for me. So I was literally like mask, gloves, bald from chemo, hitting the streets, talking to like a drug dealer, and that had all drugs, not just cannabis. And here I was trying to use this stuff to help myself heal and just to get off all the synthetics. And it was just a really scary, illegal situation in a very high stress environment when I'm already going through a lot of crap because of cancer. And so like once I kind of came out the other side, and in 2012 I had 2 bone marrow transplants, and now I've been in remission for about 9 years, which is pretty awesome. But now I'm really got into cannabis and plant-based wellness, so much so that I got involved with a farm up in Vermont, and we produce USA organic hemp, and we use organic processing. We have like $1 million rosin press called the Sasquatch, which we're just crushing stuff all day long, fresh squeezed CBD. And something I really believe in, and because nature is the world's pharmacy, and I really want to share that message with as many people as possible, and try to get everyone using more plant-based wellness.
You skipped something. So you are a Hall of Famer, and congrats. Now, Paul admitted he smoked during his time in the NBA and Riley in the NHL. Did you smoke on Survivor?
No, because like if you get the munchies, there's like nothing out there. You can be like, you got no food, you got no water, you got no shelter, you got nothing.
Yeah,
that would be very bad if you had the munchies.
dude.
I don't
Yeah,
deserve that.
Another thing is, I think it's important to get across, because, marijuana in sports, smoking it is not really good for the sports player. So, but we got to help people understand there's other ways to consume it. So it's not damaging to the lungs to where you're not going out there, getting tired. There's the gummies, there's different ways you can take it without the smoke. And so when I was doing it, it wasn't no other ways. I didn't know that other way, the edible part of it, the different way, it probably had the cookies or whatever, but there's so many different ways to consume without the smoke that can help the athlete, and so I just want, the athlete of today to know that it can help in your recovery, bring you back, helps with inflammation. This is all the stuff I've been studying since I've been done playing. And I know, I think it's the future, if not the now. And you're seeing more and more sports teams move away from testing from marijuana. You see the NBA. I believe MLB doesn't test anymore. I'm not sure if they do.
They don't.
I believe MLB, and now this is the second year the NBA is not testing, I believe. And so, they're headed in the right direction. And I hope, more as time moves on, more and more sports league across the world will catch on.
Well, and then plus, Paul, the bombs, you can get the bathtub bombs, you can get the roll-ons. It's a lot of ways that you don't have to smoke to get yourself to recover and make your body feel better.
That'll be great in sports,
a lot
exactly.
of things, and we don't have the that's why we're on these panels now, to get the education, to show people that it's just not about just smoking marijuana. It's about recovering and getting everybody to feel better. Because right now, a lot of athletes that are in their 60s and 70s who have been going through that pain stuff. I can take one example of Earl Campbell, who barely can walk, that need this type of stuff to help him get back to walking or to help him feel better, because they're going to bed waking up in the middle of the night in pain. And we got a lot of cannabis that can help with this stuff. And when me and Paul have collabed together with Hubcraft, we're doing that type of stuff. We want people to understand that we're trying to help. It's not just about you getting high and all that. It's about making you feel better. And that's what I want to be put in this world, and let everybody understand, and let the sports world know too. A lot of the sports world going to have to know. These guys can go in after a game and put this stuff on them and don't have to be high and get a recovery. It's not helping them play basketball or nothing. It's helping them to get on the floor and get better. And that's what we have to put out there and preach to other people to understand.
I often say it's not about getting high. For me, it's about taking out the lows. And that's what THC and cannabis does for me. Paul, how is the NBA maybe taking the lead on this? I think they are the only one not testing. Major League Baseball still does, though they don't suspend. Okay. NHL still does, though they don't suspend. And the NFL tests. But again, the only guy that's been suspended, I think, is Josh Gordon because of repeated violations. How can the NBA lead? Kevin Durant came out, partnered with Weed Maps, and said he wants to change the stigma on cannabis.
I think as time goes on, you see leaders like myself and Gary, and then current players like Kevin Durant, share their voice, share their platform and all of this, showing that, this is more than a business. This is something that really works. This is something that's natural. This is something that's plant-based. As you see, we're moving toward more of a plant-based world anyway, not only with the medicine, but the way we eat, the way we live, and all type of things that we do. So if we can just continue to create platforms like this, continue to have bigger voices in the space, continue to preach their message, then sooner or later, the NBA has always been a pioneer for other sports leagues. If you look, when just like when Corona hit and the NBA said, all right, we're going to go to a bubble. We're going to start back up, but we're going to find, and then other teams, MLB, they found a way to get started. NFL found a way to get started. We've always been a pioneers in the sports world and everything. And so once we do things, other sports league follow. And so as we continue to pioneer this lane and continue to just take the stigma off of it, then you'll see other leagues fall in line with it also.
The NHL is an interesting case, Riley, because, of course, it's legal in Canada, where 7 of the 32 teams call home. So you've got essentially every team crossing the border where it's legal. But first, I want you to tell me how you were able to smoke throughout your NHL career and never get suspended for it. How did you get away with that, and how has the league evolved?
The secret was just not caring. It was just.
I guess I know.
4 times a year.
There's ways. I drank. Just put it this way. I drank a lot of water.
Yeah,
I drink a lot of water. You know what I'm saying? So you got to think as athletes, we can cleanse our bodies a lot faster than just a normal person every day. For the time it takes to get out of my system to just the average working person, it's a little bit faster because we're running, we're sweating, we're drinking gallons of water a day, and so it just, and there's solutions you can take also. So
is that what you did, Riley? What did you do?
Hell no, there wasn't that much thought behind it. It was just like we knew the NHL wasn't suspending anybody for THC. It was a banned substance, but no one went through the substance abuse program for just cannabis. So we just kind of just did it with, and just like hope that nothing bad would happen. But
right.
3-4 times a year we drug tested, and never once did I get a phone call from the league or the substance abuse program.
Yeah.
And that was like several other guys too. I mean, there was, 2 handfuls of guys on each team that would be regular cannabis users. So I think they knew their players used it. They just didn't want to penalize them for it, unlike the NFL, where they were actually like targeting guys to suspend them. So there's a lot of guys bending rules, and cannabis is still a banned substance in the NHL. But I would say over 90% of players use some sort of cannabis-based product, whether it's THC-based, CBD-based, or a blend of them both, and in one way, shape, or form. You guys are talking about all these different delivery systems. I mean, transdermal patches, topicals. You talk about capsules, gummies. You go down the list. These guys are, I've seen guys when I was coaching even mixing THC and peanut butter and bringing it on the bus, and I was like, oh, You know, it's pretty clever. It's pretty clever, you know. And I'd rather see my guys doing that than drinking beers in the back of the bus or, you know, wherever else. So things are changing. I think that you mentioned it when you prefaced this question is the international border. There's politics involved in, you know, in obviously in travel, and they're not going to allow Canadians to use it, or the Canadian teams to use it, and not the American teams. I mean, it's just until we have some sort of balance between the two countries around their cannabis policies, I don't think you're going to see anything change in the NHL anyways.
One thing that would help is if it was taken off the banned list. WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, is re-examining its rules, re-examining the question of should it be on the banned list. MJ, I'm curious your thoughts on that. It, of course, came up with Sha'Carri Richardson, suspended for a month, lost out on her Olympic appearance because of a positive test during trials. She took an edible after being told her mom had died. Should it even be on the banned list? Because there are 3 qualifications. 1, which is it is harmful to the athlete. 2, which is it is performance enhancing. And 3 is utter bullshit. It's called violates the spirit of the sport, which we don't really know what that is.
That means.
Should it be on the banned list in the first place?
I mean, no, obviously, and I'm sure we all agree that, right? No, at this point in time that we've seen enough medicinal quality from it that even with the federal being federally illegal, that shouldn't even be a question either. But, you know, again, you have to look at things objectively, and when you're looking at the Olympics, it's a world organization, and so the rules were the rules, and so it sucks. And should she have been banned? Of course not in my opinion. We can fight tooth and nail, but the rules were the rules. So until that gets off there, and I'm glad that they are actually looking at that, and I'm hoping, and we're going to start seeing that hopefully sooner than later with a lot of different organizations in getting cannabis off of that list.
I hope it is removed soon, but it is difficult when you only have it legal in Canada and Mexico and maybe 2 other countries on the entire planet.
Yeah.
Ethan, the question is, though, is it actually performance enhancing? Because there's a new book out called Runner's High that talks about runners who use it before they run, guys who work out, and guys that actually play professional sports after using THC. So could it be performance enhancing in a way?
I mean, I feel it could be considered performance enhancing. I personally didn't use it when I was an athlete. However, now I use it when I go take a run or lift weights or do some CrossFit stuff. So do I think it elevates me and makes me a better player? Probably not. But I think it reduces some of the anxiety. It gets me to the flow state a little bit quicker. Riley, you were talking about that earlier. And then a part of the recovery process as well is really important for me. I think where it gets a little confusing, you know, and we're talking about kind of the professional leagues. There are some lower level professional soccer teams, Las Vegas Lights, for example, where the team is actually sponsored by a cannabis company. New Cannabis is one of the largest dispensaries in Vegas. Yet, like, the players aren't allowed to use it through the league, but it's on their jerseys, it's in the stadium. So, like, what's that all about? You know, sending mixed messages to players, to the consumers, to kids walking in the stadium. So I think it's something that needs to be explored on whether, like, it is a performance enhancing drug, or it's just a way for athletes to, you know, overcome some of their performance anxiety. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from for that.
And Riley, that was an issue with you, the performance anxiety as well, right?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think everybody has it. It's just, you know, part of the business. I think it's part of life, right? I mean, anxiety is just there. You know, someone obviously could argue that this is a performance enhancing drug, and I think if you use it the right way, it technically could be. I think most people misuse cannabis. You know, there's more people that misuse it than there's actual mindful cannabis users. I think you have to be pretty precise to use this as a performance enhancing tool. I think there's an element of, you know, very serious discipline with microdosing and not crossing that threshold where now the medicine starts working against you, right? You're trying to find that balance of flow and execution and all that good stuff without being too tired or, you know, too high where you're now, you know, thinking about other things than where you should be. So there is strategy involved in that. I know martial artists that do it. I know hockey players that do it. I do it now playing men's league and I really enjoy it, obviously. there's something there. There's certainly something there. But I think when you're serious about this thing, if it's about the health of the athlete, we got to let guys use this, because this is drug diversion. This is getting people off, these prescription drugs. I mean, getting people off alcohol. I mean, traditionally, I'm assuming it's the same in all sports, but the hockey culture is, play hockey and drink beer, and there's just tons of alcohol ingrained in the sport. So we can get guys off that and help these athletes recover in a different way. But to me, the conversation shouldn't be about performance enhancing, because I think it's subjective when it's all said and done, as how it can really impact an athlete's performance.
I believe it's 23 and a half beers exactly fit in the Stanley Cup. That has been tried and tested many times over. So Marcus has an interesting question, and it speaks to it's to the truth, and it speaks to that notion of performance enhancing. Marcus wants to know, Paul, did you ever smoke before a game, before a playoff game, and have a great performance?
No, I actually never have done that. That's one thing. I've never done it before practice. I've never done it before a game. But as far as the sports enhancing aspect of it, do I believe that it can? I don't know. I don't know. But I do know one thing. I know that there's certain strains that I know that it brings my concentration level to like I'm really concentrating on something. And I've noticed that when I play chess. I've noticed that when I've been more creative. But how does that affect me in sports? I don't know, because I haven't went that route or never tried to go that route. And
that's the flow.
I wouldn't want, especially. But I just know the creative side of me, it's so much better. It helps me lock in. But I've never had a chance to do it pre-game or even before practice.
Glove, what is the cannabis culture in the NBA? And can you even guess how many players, like percentage-wise, do smoke in the game today?
Well, you know what, Dave? I think right now, and I think Paul agreed to this, probably about 85 to 90% of people who smoke in the NBA. It's probably going that route. It's a different generation. It's a younger generation, and they like to smoke. That's what makes them relax. And as Paul said it, anxiety and all this stuff is being a big part of our sport and about anybody's sport. People are going through a lot, and we just don't know it. And this is what makes them calm down and makes them become more relaxed and be able to sleep and do the things. It's just like what Ethan said. You got to get something to sleep. You got to do that. And Paul, what he went through in 2000, that's big, because you think about what happened to him, and he thinking about losing his life. Yes, you're thinking about, I could have died.
Yeah.
It takes a lot in your mind. It takes like, man, I while he was in the hospital thinking, am I going to survive this? This gets mental things into you and gets you to stressing, gets things to be bothered by you. And I think some of these guys are doing this to really relieve the pressure of what's going on in their lives. Yep. And it happens. I'm just fortunate that I came in an era where we wasn't really doing a lot of cannabis and a lot of drugs and stuff like that. The NBA wasn't like that. David Stern was running he was the head of our thing, the commissioner. He wasn't allowing that. And we were more into that in the 90s and 80s. And I think the eras have changed, and cannabis has changed it. And this is what making these kids and people survive now, because this is giving them a solution to relax and get out of the stressful things and all anxiety that they're having. And that's why I'm into it, because we have to find a solution to stop that. We don't want people to go out and think about killing themselves or doing things that's silly. We don't want that. We want them to be relaxed and feeling good, because this life is too short right now.
But you're now a college head coach. Do you support your players smoking?
You know what, Dave? I've told my players I don't want them I don't want to smell it on them while they come to practice or for a game. That's not going to happen. I can't control these kids outside of what's not under my control. I can't. I can preach it, and I can say, hey, if it's going to work with you, just be ready to come and play the game. Like what Paul said. He was responsible not to do it before practicing for a game. That's being responsible. What you do off the court and get it right, long as you don't hurt yourself, and then long as you be ready to do your performance, I'm with it. But don't come to my practice smelling like weed and marijuana and stuff like that. I won't allow that. That's something I'm not going to allow. But if you do it recreational outside and it's helping you get through some things, then I'm for it.
And Riley, the head injuries is a whole nother aspect of the story we haven't really addressed.
Yeah, for real.
Darren McCarty told me, the former 4-time Stanley Cup champ, that it's the only reason he's alive today. And Kyle Turley, who played with the Saints, said the same thing. How helpful can it be, or do we even know yet when it comes to, you must have suffered 5-6 concussions when it comes to CTE and brain injuries?
Yeah, I don't think we've scratched the surface of what it really can do. We do know that the U.S. government holds a patent on cannabinoids as neuroprotectants and antioxidants, so there's obviously something there. The head injury, the TBI component, was the big reason that I kind of dove, no pun intended, like head first into this, was because I started to understand that CBD and these other minor cannabinoids offered neuroprotection. So having been punched in the face several thousand times, like I said, and a ton of, say repeated head trauma. I thought naturally it made a ton of sense to get into cannabinoids for neuroprotection, as well as some other mushrooms, psilocybin and lion's mane and these other that really help with neurogenesis and reconnection, regeneration. But when you talk about treating the brain with cannabis, we're no longer really talking about using flower and smoking flower. Yeah, it can help calm the nervous system and anxiety. You're talking more precise doses of high CBD tinctures. You're talking about getting in the 200, 300 milligram dose of CBD, and there's other minor cannabinoids, CBG and some others. So it's very precise. And again, this is just like my experience figuring out as a meathead, like not to mention how much more science there needs to be done around this and how it can impact the brain. But I also wanted to build off what Gary was saying around the truth story there. I mean, what we're talking about is trauma, right? I mean, it's trauma. I mean, I'm talking about brain trauma. You're talking about trauma from an experience of near death. You look at all addiction, substance abuse, the gateway is always trauma, and people are trying to find ways to cope, right? I mean, coping mechanisms, right? And naturally, cannabis is an amazing one because it just kind of helps you deal with the shit, and instead of going, to the booze, or you're going to the hard stuff, and it's drug diversion. So that's more psychological and more around psychotherapy. But the science supports that, as well as the science supports how the brain can be regenerated through the mindful use of cannabinoids. There's a formula there. You can't just assume that we can be smoking high THC varieties all day long and we're going to be treating our concussions, right? I mean, that would be foolish. But to everyone's talking about, like responsible cannabis use, the proper way, the proper delivery systems, the proper ratios. I mean, you always got to ask yourself, what is the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? What Truth's working on, and Gary and MJ and Ethan might be a completely different formula that I'm using for my personal objectives. So, there's a book out called Cannabis is Personal. Everything's personal, but understanding that, cannabis is personal and we're all different and we all need different ratios and delivery systems for what we're trying to accomplish.
And Riley, I'm working on something. I'm sorry, MJ. Riley, I'm working on something now that with the NFL about concussion stuff, coming out with a cannabis that can help it and just try to solve and resolve that. We're in negotiations now, trying to talk and find a solution. We're in the labs right now trying to find out if it's something that can help to stop people from killing themselves and hurting themselves after being all that concussion, even with boxers, even with yourself, Riley, with NHL players. We're trying, and my company is getting in full blast with this right now of healthy stuff too, to see if we can try to catch it before it even starts to happen, before it even gets there, after a person has got 7, 8 concussions and then getting into the later parts of their lives and then they don't get it. But I'm into that really fully right now because, you know, we have to help each other, and we have to help each other athletes to try to solve this. And it's a sad story every time we look in the paper, somebody's killing themselves, and then we're blaming it on it. So let's try to make a solution and get it solved.
Ethan, you looked like you wanted to build on what Riley was saying there.
Well, I mean, I just a little bit in the sense, but more on the fact that I think, you know, it's a really exciting time in cannabis. We're just at the beginning. It's like the first inning of, you know, of a 9 inning game. And like, it's a really exciting time. And I think it's incredible that folks like yourselves are, you know, speaking out, showing cannabis in a positive light, responsible cannabis use. And I think there's a role the industry has to play to make sure that, you know, the youth and the kids aren't misusing cannabis, just like alcohol, drunk driving, Apple, anti-screen time, gambling, anti-gambling. Cannabis has a role to play to make sure kids aren't misusing cannabis. So that's why I think it's great when ambassadors like yourself, professional players, athletes, celebrities, musicians are all coming out speaking about the responsible use of cannabis. I think that's incredibly important. And I think it's something we should all like model our behavior after. And that's why I love you guys saying you're not just smoking it. It's not just smoking. It's calculated. Like when I started using, I actually met with a cannabis doctor, cannabis oncologist to learn what I should take, how I should take it, what dosage, what time. And it was hugely helpful for me. And I advise anyone out there looking to get into cannabis, you know, for some of your health issues, to meet with someone if you're unsure of how to use it. I think that's a good first step for the folks out there.
And I wanted to add in, so going back to when we're talking about, especially with injuries and pain and trauma, that's what I think a lot of people don't understand either. It's pain is multifactorial, right? We're talking about emotional pain, the actual physical pain, nerve pain. And so cannabis is the only known medicine right now that actually can hit all areas of that pain. And so that's huge for athletes because when you're going through what you're going through, you're traumatized or season-ending injury, that mental, emotional is actually probably worse than that physical pain that you're going through. And cannabis is the only known thing that can actually help keep you in balance in all those areas. And so you talk about these people that go and kill themselves or go into this major depression. And I think it's super important that people understand that it's not just to fix the pain or the performance enhancement, but it's about actually balancing you out to keep you sane. And so I just think it's super important to add that in.
Yeah, it's like a holistic approach to your entire body and self-care.
Whose little one is that?
That's mine.
I wasn't sure.
CBD.
6 months.
Oh no!
6 months.
Yeah. She's lovely too. She's adorable.
She's starting to learn her voice now.
Yeah, something to say too. She knows.
Okay, so let's talk about the stigma and what kept you away from it for so long, Ethan. How is it changing? Look, full disclosure, I am again a national news anchor and was nervous to come on and moderate this because I'm not sure how the stigma has changed. You know, do people still look at you as just a stoner who sits around on the couch? How much is the stigma changing and where does it need to change the most?
Yeah, I think there is still a lot of stigma associated with it. And I think that's just because of the history of the drug and how it's been classified and how it's been policed over the years. However, I think it's changing a little bit, like I said, with folks like ourselves speaking out about it. But for me, I stayed away from it, you know, I thought from a health perspective. But now I feel if you approach cannabis and THC from the medical side of things, from a medical perspective. Listen, like I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for synthetic medicines, chemotherapies, all that radiation, all that junk. But I think there's a place for cannabis in someone's overall holistic approach to health, like I just mentioned. And so I think if you do it in a really responsible way, I think it can be incredibly helpful and healing, both physically, mentally, spiritually. And so I think the more folks that are talking about the positive sides of cannabis and not just stoner culture and getting stoned, getting high, I think we can move things forward and get people a little bit more familiar with it. Get them, you know, start on the, maybe get them involved with CBD, which can translate to, you know, to THC. Like now, like I'm mostly a CBD guy, but if things get a little bit gnarly, I'll go with like a 1-to-1 ratio of a CBD to the THC. And that for me works perfectly.
Okay, well, while we're on that, I want to hear what you guys do use. So, Paul, what tends to be the thing you use the most? You've talked a lot about these balms, but I know you enjoy the flower as well.
Yeah, I'm especially into the bombs, like Gary said. That I like to have a package. You know, it's like say like even at my older age, you know, I'll go on long walks. You know, train a little bit. So like at the end of the day, I like to have a nice little bomb, a nice indica at the end of the night. I like to take a bath, put some cream on my knees, my elbows, my neck. So I still have like sharp pain in my neck at times from nerve damage from when I was stabbed. So I like to use the topical still on my neck at night. And then a small indica joint to help me sleep. You know, that's like my care package right there. You know, that's my end of night and a glass of red wine. You know, so that's like my end of the night care package.
Yeah.
That's gonna put me in a nice laid back sleep mode to where I can really have a good night's sleep at the end of the day.
Now that is the truth. That image of you in the bath. It's a lot to take in.
With a
How
couple,
about you,
hey,
Rob?
look, I got a couple candles too. That's my peace. That's my peaceful place.
I can't unsee that. What about you, Riley?
Oh
Were you
man.
asking,
Riley, you
Dave?
with us?
Yep. Yeah.
And
Sorry,
what's
I
your
didn't
routine?
hear you there. You know, my relationship with cannabis has evolved so much over time, but I'm still obsessed with flower. I can never get away from flower. There's something really sacred and primal around flower and burning some herb. But in saying that, I smoke less flower than I did before. I get into tinctures, you know, some CBD, high CBD tinctures still. And then, you know, now and then I'll mix in like a microdose, microdose edible. So I'm like in the range of the 2 milligrams to maybe 5 or 6 milligrams as far as an edible goes, where, you know, it doesn't really affect you too much. You know, mentally, it's just more of like a body flow. But you know, interchangeable with these. So sometimes I'll go through phases of using cannabis first thing in the morning when I wake up and do my, you know, my morning ritual of meditation, yoga, the whole bit with it. And then I'll go through phases where I don't touch it for a week, and then I'll just use it at nighttime. So it's kind of like, you know, play with it now because I've gotten what I need out of cannabis, as far as the healing, what I needed to heal. And now it's just about, you know, self-preservation, but you know, more about not such reactive medicine. It's now being proactive, right, and staying ahead of it, like Ethan's saying, and really treating this as a wellness tool. Because my protocols back in the day that I essentially created myself were much higher in THC, much higher in CBD, and I was, you know, trying to accomplish healing my brain. You know, that was really the task, and really kind of getting behind my body. But now it's just playing with it a little bit more and self-experimenting. But the primalness of the flowers will probably be forever.
I will tell you, an indica gummy is a great way to get a good night's sleep. Gary, former athletes like yourselves are obviously part of the conversation, but how much do we need a current athlete to come out and say, listen, this is medicine. This is helping me. This is the only reason I can get there, out there on the court or the field. Patrick Mahomes was very supportive of Sha'Carri Richardson. I thought it might lead to a conversation about does he enjoy it now, but how important would it be for a current athlete to be the face of this, as important as it is that former athletes are carrying the torch?
It would be very, very important because, you know, this generation is about what they see now. The younger guys who coming out and talk about it and say it, they would listen to it. But it's very hard because of our pro situation. You know, a lot of pro sports doesn't want that. They don't want to see that the young kids seeing that they smoke, they do things like that. That's where we have to get the education with it. That's where everybody has to get the education of how it will help as recovery and doing things like that. And we have to get all the sports to understand that.
Yeah.
But the sports do not want you to be doing it because of who looks at the sport. A lot of young kids, a lot of mid-age kids, and they don't want the reception to go by and saying it's okay right now until they get the okay of everything going. And that's why it's been great because it's getting legal in a lot of states, you know. But as we do it, as me and Paul does it, and say what we have done in the past or what we're trying to get done, it'll bring it to a head that now listen to what we're saying. Now people in the sport can do it. You know what I'm saying? Let them do it. Until it passes, I don't think nobody in the sport now will do it because they don't want to get crucified, and that's what they'll get to. They'll get crucified right now, and that's why we're trying to make people understand as we speak out about it as former athletes, and former players, that we speak about it and tell them how healthy it is, so they can start getting an education on it. And then when it becomes okay to do it, then the people that's in that sport can then support it, because we'll never see a billboard up in the NBA arena talking about cannabis. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen right now.
You know what, man? The hypocrisy has to stop, because, and I'll tell you why. Because look, we're in these NBA arenas. We see, we promote drinking. We promote their, these owners, and they have their vodka brands, their tequila brands. I mean, like, if I have to have a sit down with my kids, and if they were like, Dad, I'm going out with some friends, we're going to be drinking, but I'll be like, I'd rather them at least consume marijuana than drink. Because, I mean,
100%.
How many lives does drinking end a year? You know what I'm saying? As compared to other drugs, we don't hear about these things in the cannabis space.
Nope.
So the hypocrisy has to end. Until these sports leagues learn how to make money off of it, then it's going to be at a distance like it is. Like you said, you've seen, I guess with the Las Vegas team, they have the sponsor on their jersey. Or didn't someone say that earlier?
Yeah, in the stadium. Yep.
In the stadium. And so now they're finding ways to make money off it. So now, the stigma's going down more in Vegas now. So across these sports leagues, as time goes on, when you start seeing, Truth Cannabis in the Boston Garden, then, we know you got to be responsible. Yeah, we know that you have to be 18 and up or 21 and up, like alcohol. And so let's just stop the hypocrisy and just like open it up. And then the government, until they can find a way to make money off of it, it's not going to be legal. I mean, let's just keep it honest, because it's not dangerous.
It's the lobbying as well, right? With pharmaceuticals, the largest lobbyist group.
Absolutely, that too. It's too much. It's a lot of money involved, but and money talks. We all know that. So
19 states plus DC, it's legal. 37 medical. So we are getting awfully close. Somebody said, I agree with you 100%, when Paul said he'd rather his kids smoke than drink. Who was that?
Probably all of us.
Does everyone agree with that? I'm curious.
If I think about it, if you're in the house and they consuming like an edible or something, most likely they're gonna end the night off going right to sleep. instead of getting in some car or making a mistake at the club. It's just too many bad things happen with alcohol, and it's just
I mean, you even hear about it at the festivals, right? The cannabis festivals, how many fights happen compared to a festival full of alcohol or other drugs? Like, it's like zero. There's never the fighting, the anger.
And there's never been a known overdose death of cannabis. There's not one that's actually been certified. So that I have talked to ERs about this. They say they see a lot of kids who have had too much, and they always just let them sleep it off. So yes, I think I'm with you on that, Paul. MJ, you're all about education though, and you can't say 8 or 10 things. To get a message across, you have to tailor it to one thing. So what's the message you want to get out there about cannabis?
Well, I think when you are trying to educate people, right, as we're trying to create brands and get out there and make awareness for it, it's about educating people from their understanding. So that's always my number one thing when I'm going in with these companies is how do you educate your consumer from their understanding, right, from the stigma, and getting them from their point of view to see it, and then kind of rolling out how it is. A lot of times we're educating is like, oh, it works or it does this. We might believe in it, but how does someone else view that, and how can you educate them based on their view? And so to me, that's extremely important in ending the stigma.
I think Paul hit on the most important thing is we have glamorized liquor to a status kingly. I mean, the tequilas, the vodkas, that they are so celebrated by social media, by traditional media. And Ethan, how do we change that perception that alcohol is just this wonderful thing and cannabis is for guys that sit around on the couch, eat nachos, and don't move all day?
I mean, I think there's a big role for storytelling. You know, the stories of why people use cannabis, how they got into it, the successful outcomes that they've achieved through using cannabis. So all the brands out there who are pushing their product, they're also sharing the story of the people who are using it. And getting back to education, it's like re-education. We're re-educating the general public on the benefits of cannabis use. I mean, cannabis has been legal longer than it's been illegal, you know, in the history of cannabis. And if you look at where people are sourcing, it's these dispensaries where the bud tenders are really just educators. That, like, how many times do you see people going into these dispensary, new users, where these guys are going through really long, you know, descriptions of what everything's doing and how to use it. I think that's wonderful. And I think we need to obviously create an incredible, like, line of bud tenders who actually know what they're talking about and can educate people, because that's pretty much the most important thing we have to do right now, is to re-educate the general public.
I live in Connecticut, where you have to be a certified pharmacist to work at a dispensary, and they are incredibly knowledgeable. I know we're about to wrap it up. We've been at it about an hour, so I want to give all you guys an opportunity to have a closing comment and to tell people how they can find you or follow you or hear more about your message. So Riley, go ahead.
Yeah, I co-founded a nonprofit for using athletes' platforms to normalize and destigmatize cannabis and psychedelics and other alternative means. Athletesforcare.org. Also have a hemp-derived CBD and functional mushroom company, Body Check Wellness, and bodycheckwellness.com, and just personal stuff. Riley Cote 32 on Instagram, and same on Twitter. Riley Cote 32 on Twitter. So,
and any last message that you want to get out there?
No, I think it's just mindful. I think it's got to be mindful, deliberate, intentional cannabis use. I think all cannabis is medicine, therapeutic, but there's nothing wrong with using it in a recreational setting. I mean, laughter is medicine. You know, commune is medicine. Connection, all these spiritual things we talk about that are almost ignored when we talk about cannabis as a healing modality. I think we need to talk about more. But you can smile, you can laugh, and heal at the same time.
Nice to see what Athletes for Care is doing. GP, before we go, we know the strain, the glove, is coming to Massachusetts, the Hubcraft, next year. You can obviously get it out west through Cookies. Any last message from you? And besides the Instagram, which is gary.payton.20, how can people hear more about your message?
Well, Dave, everybody can hear about my message. You know, I'm going to be out there. Like I said, I'm starting a new company called GP General Principle, which is more of a healthy everything cannabis. That's what I'm going to promote. I'm going to be through Cookies. I got another line coming through Cookies called the Hall of Game, where I'm going to basically do nothing but Hall of Famers. Paul and Dr. J is going to be my newest crew that's coming out. I got the rapper Little Dirt. I'm about to do a lean drink that's really freshly, just organic, healthy. You know, it's gonna be off the chain. I got a lot of things coming. I got vape pens that's gonna be, like I said, it should be healthy. I'm gonna be promoting this through Cookies myself. You know, I got here in Oakland and in San Francisco, I got a dispensary with a lounge coming out with both, where you can eat while you smoke, go and walk outside on the balcony and have drinks too. But you know that we can't have drinks and marijuana together in the state of California, but you can go outside and do it with the drink and leave the marijuana inside. So I'm doing all of that. It's gonna be pumping for me. I'm getting going in the new glove is coming out. The glove strand is coming out pretty soon next year. So it's gonna be great. Everybody can get in touch with me. I'm gonna keep it going to make sure everybody know everything's healthy in here. We're gonna have healthy stuff to get you high, as we say. We have never had an incident where marijuana or cannabis killed somebody. So we're going to keep it that way. We're going to keep it healthy.
I'm coming through to that lounge.
You better, man. You better. Everybody
We want a VIP invite.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Well,
it is incredible when you talk about the Hall of Fame, not just yourselves, 2 Hall of Famers that are cannabis business owners, but Chris Webber also inducted into the Hall of Fame with Paul just a couple of weeks ago. And he is not just someone who's an advocate, but a cannabis business owner as well. So that is really changing the stigma. Calvin Johnson, Megatron, mentioned cannabis in his NFL Hall of Fame speech. I thought that was a huge moment for the plant. Paul, tell us what you got coming up and how people can follow you.
Oh, yeah. Just continue to follow me through Instagram, Paul Pierce, The Truth. We're going to be launching my brand through Hubcraft, starting in Boston and moving all the way through to California coming this fall and winter. So, just everybody keep pace and see the new stuff I got coming out. I also got some things in the podcast world that's going to be coming out. I can share my message that we're going to be talking about a lot of the cannabis stuff, crypto, current events. To all my fans, I like to thank y'all. Just continue to follow. I got some hot stuff coming. You can keep up with me either on Twitter or on my Instagram.
So you got a podcast coming. Did you say you're going to talk crypto?
Yeah, crypto, cannabis, and current events. CCC.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Damn, I don't know shit about crypto. I'm going to stay way away from that. But I will.
This is a new day and time. We need to learn about these things.
Yeah.
This is the future. This is the future, and I want to educate people on all of this.
Crypto and cannabis, man. I am doubling down on that. All right, MJ, how about you?
You can find me Instagram, MJ Stapley9. MJ Hybrid Solutions is my training website. And I'm all over. I work with dispensaries all over the U.S. So if you ever need any type of education, training, customization, I got you. So you can reach out to me. Melissa at mjhybridsolutions.com is my email as well.
And Ethan.
You can find me on Instagram at Ethan Zohn. I'm currently the Chief Purpose Officer at Montcush Farms, and we produce, USDA certified organic hemp rosin, and we have a full line of products. We also filmed the 13-episode reality show called Kings of Kush, which is on Vice, so you can check us out there.
Oh man, I want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. It's pretty awesome. And then I'm also the co-founder of a charity called Safe Roots Foundation, which is a new wave in teenage drug misuse prevention, where we raise money from the cannabis industry, and then we fund the best evidence-based teenage drug prevention programs across the country. So that's what I'm up to these days.
Are you going to ever grow that big head of hair back from Survivor days?
Well, I don't think so, man.
Hey, he didn't have a barber out there.
And you can follow me at Dave Briggs TV on Instagram. I answer just about every single DM minus the real crude one. So check me out on Pro Cannabis Media. The Conversation is a weekly conversation. The episode with Paul, the episode with Gary, they're both on the Pro Cannabis YouTube page. But it looks like Scott is coming back to us to wrap this up with Kara. Hey, guys.
Hey guys, thank you so much. What a wonderful conversation. Can't thank each and every one of you enough for coming through and sharing your message. One of the things that I kept hearing is how important it is for people in, of your stature to talk about this and talk about the safety of it. It was just an amazing conversation. So kudos to all of you, and thank you for joining us at Boston Cannabis Week. Thank you again to the Hubcraft for making this happen. This was such a fantastic conversation. Thank you, Kara, again, for doing a wonderful job with our education series. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. with a construction panel. And then on Wednesday, we have a full in-person array of panels that will also be live streamed right here. And then at the end of the week, you can actually find Hall of Famer Ethan Zohn joining us at our health and wellness event. Ethan's going to be leading people through a stretch in the morning before they exercise for the day, right up until 4:20, which will wrap up the Boston Cannabis Week events. And any of you want to come out to any of the events of Boston Cannabis Week, you always have an open invitation.
Thank you.
Next year, let's do it in person.
Yeah, right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had the pleasure of meeting Paul in person a couple of weeks ago at the Hubcraft event. That was a
Oh,
such
that
a
was awesome.
wonderful time, and this whole panel is a dream come true for all of us. So thank you again to all of you. Dave, wonderful job moderating, and Kara, can't thank you enough for the job you do educationally.
This was absolutely wonderful conversation. I loved listening. I learned a lot. I did.
So, and this will live on our YouTube and on our Facebook page. So feel free to share away, and look forward to seeing what all you guys are up to next year. And let's do this one in person.
All right.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you
Good
so
luck,
much,
everybody.
everyone. Take care.
Thanks again, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.